How do you get it to sound like a cello? How I keep my overdrive pedal wired in my chain is critical to making this happen. I'm all about giving credit where credit is due. I stole this trick from a fine steel player from around my hometown area of Augusta, Georgia, named Ira Johnson. A lot of people ask a lot of things, and I'm going to try to get around to addressing some of those. And this could be anything just from some trick on the pedal steel, or a question about equipment or technique, or just anything really, just sort of riffing on ideas about the pedal steel. And I'll start by saying that the number one question that I've been asked over my professional playing career since 1989, both by audience members and fellow musicians alike, is how do you make it sound like an organ? So I want to say we've covered this topic very thoroughly in the Organized Pedal Steel series. So if that's the first question that you have, then I suggest going back and watching that series and covering that. Which brings me to what we're going to discuss this time, which is another question that a lot of people always ask me is, how do you get it to sound like a cello? And so I'm going to give a little demonstration of here in a second of what that sounds like and how I achieve that. I want to start by saying that no matter what sort of gig I'm on, or session, or anything else, no matter what genre I'm playing, no matter what, I always keep an overdrive pedal as a part of my rig. And so I'm going to describe how the overdrive pedal plays into this sort of fake cello thing, if you will. Now, how I keep my overdrive pedal wired in my chain is critical to making this happen. So it's important to understand, as I've already discussed in a effects series, the overdrive pedal or the distortion pedal has to be the very first thing that happens once you come out of your guitar. So I go out of my guitar into my overdrive pedal, and then into my volume pedal, and then to everything else after that. And the reason that I do that is because I want my overdrive pedal to have super hot signal all the time, and that's going to play into this sort of fake cello thing. The other thing I do for this is I go ahead and I go to the patch on my processor here as if I had my ballad steel patch going on, my slow song, a fairly decent amount of reverb and a fairly decent amount of delay. So when we think about this overdrive pedal thing, a lot of times people automatically assume we're going to be talking about playing rock and roll, or we're going to be talking about playing the blues or something like that. So, you know, they automatically assume that this might be the kind of thing going on. But we're going to use the overdrive pedal for an entirely different application here and see if we can get it to sort of replicate the cello. So I'm going to go ahead and go over here on my processor, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on my ballad steel patch, my slow song patch with a good amount of reverb and delay. And what I want to do here is I'm going to get down on my 10th string, my lowest string. And here's the thing about this. This is all going to happen on one string. And I've got my overdrive pedal turned on. The kind you use is entirely up to the individual. I personally have been using the very same Boss Blues Driver 2 since the early 90s. So if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I'm gonna play all this stuff in the key of C, just to give you a little hint of what this sounds like. So what's going on here? Well, if you were to watch a cello player in an orchestra, or any string player for that matter, you'll notice that they oftentimes use very intense vibrato. And so we're going to take the tip of the bar and replicate that. So we're going to start down here on the 10th string at the 1st fret. And I'm going to go ahead and use my thumb to initiate the string. And I'm never going to pick it again. And if you look over here at my right hand, you'll see that I'm using the pick blocking technique to go ahead and isolate all the strings above that 10th one. Nothing else can ring. Those are all muted out. And that's important because we've got all this gain going on from the distortion pedal. So if that were to take off, we might end up with a feedback situation. And another thing I'll caution about is I use humbucking pickups, but if you play a guitar with single coil pickups, the feedback is more likely to occur. So just be advised that feedback might be an issue if you use single coil pickups. So here we are, back on the 10th string at the 1st fret. I'm going to initiate it with my thumb and then block everything else, and then just the tip of the bar, or sometimes I'll lean the bar back. But the thing of it is I want to make sure the bar is not touching anything but that lowest string. And I want to get that fairly intense vibrato going. And once I start that, because of the gain of the distortion pedal, and because the tip of the bar is actually rubbing across the winding on the string, we basically end up with perpetual sustain. And once that's going, we can move it around. This can go on indefinitely, and we can play whatever sort of line we can manage to work out of having a single string to work with. But we can play something real singy, and as long as we don't let up on that vibrato, we'll have indefinite sustain. Now, the reason having the overdrive pedal in front of the volume pedal is so crucial here, because now we can turn down, but the pedal's still getting all that hot signal, so it's still going, and when I start turning back up with the volume pedal, it's still there, and that gives us an opportunity to add a little swell here and there, or just turn up and down as needed. All right, now you might notice, or maybe you've seen, or maybe you are a steel player who uses a little device called an ebow. This also works relatively well to replicate the effect of the ebow, although the advantage to the ebow is you can also use it up on higher strings. The advantage to this is I've always got the distortion pedal in my rig anyway, and it gives me a little cheat option for making that happen without any additional gear. Now then, I'm all about giving credit where credit is due. I stole this trick from a fine steel player from around my hometown area of Augusta, Georgia, named Ira Johnson. He turned me on to how to do this, and Ira's no longer with us, but I sure do want to let everybody know that that's where I got this idea from, and I'm proud to say that I use it on a regular basis. Thanks, and we'll catch y'all next time.
See the equipment our pros use at the best prices anywhere online. Support small business and save.